All right, so let's start. Thanks, Chef Liebrandt, for joining us today. So,
Right.
to start, maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself and your relationship with food growing up.
I originally come from London, is where I did my training and what have you, and grew up being British in London, and then Paris in the sort of Michelin star um, area of restaurants. I came to this country and to New York in 2000, and I was quite young to come here. I was 24, yeah, and I just put my feet down and, you know, opened some restaurants and did okay, I suppose, here in New York. Um, but I was very much enthralled with this country and the openness of obviously, coming from anywhere in the world and, you know, rolling your sleeves up and getting on with it. So the ethic here is great. So that was my, in a nutshell, I suppose, why I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, America has definitely some certain energy, especially for people that are coming into the country, right? So it's very different in terms of the mindset and the way that they work, for sure.
Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, times change in every country, but I think definitely the ethics, the mentality, and the sensibility of uh, the culture, I guess you could say, of this country, and New York, and obviously a lot of other cities, but definitely the is pro, you know, getting behind and pushing and being successful, which I think is obviously in our business a good thing. It's definitely a good thing. So yes, that's why I'm here, I suppose. Yeah.
And how was your food, relationship with food growing up as a kid, as a child?
I, well, I mean, I didn't have any at all. I mean, I grew up in London. No family or anything in the area of hospitality, food, anything like that. I grew up right in the center of London, so not in the countryside or have a garden or anything. So I didn't have any connection growing up. I mean, I lived opposite Chinatown in London, which I suppose had a big influence on me in some way, I suppose. I remember, like, as a kid, Gerrard Street, which is the main street of Chinatown, very small in London, but it was obviously Cantonese cuisine because of Hong Kong and the British Empire and what have you. But watching, wontons being made and have the ducks in the window and I guess from when you visualize on things when you're a child and not fixate, but it definitely has an imprint on things. So that for me was very influential as to, in a unknown way, I suppose, from when I was a kid. So that, I suppose, that was an early food influence, but not in the normal way of, my father or my grandfather had a restaurant and I took it over like a lot of obviously chefs do. But no, I didn't have any. So it wasn't. I just felt like I don't know why. I just enjoyed going to the market. Berwick Street Market was a very old school market right in the middle of Soho in London. And I grew up maybe 5 blocks from there. So right in the center. But it was kind of amusing because where the market was, everybody would come out and they would basically have basic fruits and veg and stuff like that, basic stuff, but they would sell them, I suppose, in a way that hadn't changed since the time of like Charles Dickens, or in a bag, carrots today. We got some great, spinach from Kent, and that sort of thing. Yet like a market should be. And I remember I'm going to shop there when I was a kid. And I found it exhilarating and fun. This is before restaurants, obviously, but just the idea of food being something that is more than just a plate put in front of you to like nourish you. Um, yeah. yeah, I suppose those are early memories, but I didn't grow up in a restaurant or go on holidays with the family and eat at restaurants or anything like that. No, no. Yeah.
It's funny when you talk about Chinatown because I'm actually from Hong Kong, so people talking about
Love,
sometimes about
love Hong Kong. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right the wonton and definitely the barbecue duck and the meats in the window.
Chinese cuisine is one of the mother cuisines of the world that dates back millennia, obviously. So it's been here much longer than all of European cuisine, and the depth, obviously, for the land mass of China, not just Hong Kong, but just the whole geographical area, very varied, obviously, in climate, in the terroir, mountainous, sea, you name it. So it makes it obviously a very intricate and very graphic cuisine because you have so many different layers to it. Like America, I suppose, in a weird way. You have a lot of landmass. So you West Coast to East Coast to Midwest to North to South is very different depending where you go in a country based on locality and trade routes and what have you. But Chinese cuisine has always been fascinating to me as far as you know, Cantonese cuisine and Sichuan are so completely different. It literally is like two countries. It's not, but it could be. So yeah, I think the visual aspect, the flavor profile, it's very very interesting, and I happen to grow up opposite, so it's had a big impact on me, I suppose. Yeah.
Talking about impact and influence, you worked at a lot of great restaurants, a lot of great chefs.
Yeah.
Obviously, you mentioned the stint with Chef Pierre Gagnaire was very impactful for you. Was there any particular things that you remember, or why was that particularly important to you?
Um, well, I think most importantly it had to do with my age. As most of us, we're impactful on things in our teens a lot of the time, which can impact for the rest of your life, ideas, that kind of thing. So I started cooking when I was 15, in London, and I did the sort of, I suppose, usual. You go to this restaurant, that restaurant, because it's sort of like a circle of great chefs, but it was very, as with most cities, very replicable. The style of the cuisine, the techniques, that kind of thing. So it was always a finishing school to go to France at that time. This is, the late 90s. To go to France as a finishing school, and you work with one of the three-star greats in France. And I always really enjoyed the thoughtfulness of food. So rather than just the cooking part, the creative part for sure, but the sensibility of how to join the dots with French food is a very, very, very interesting and very complex thing. And I thought for my palate, my idea, I just really thought what he was doing was cut above a lot of other, obviously, chefs. So when I went to, I mean, how old was I? I was 21, 21 when I went there. And obviously, when you put yourself into a culture where they don't speak English as a first language, you're on your own, you have no money, but you're there for a purpose. Um, for me, it was a big impact, obviously, on just working in a world city like Paris that is all consuming of food. Every street, there's a bakery or a patisserie or something of this nature, which screams food, which London at that time didn't have quite the same feel as far as food wise goes. So it spoke very vividly to me. So working there in the kitchen, the communication initially, I mean, I learned French eventually, but for the first 6 months, it wasn't verbal as such. It was the communication through the physical act of, okay, we're not speaking literally the same language. I mean, I knew a few words of French, but not to hold a conversation like this. I had to learn it. But there was the act that once you saw, you know what you're doing when you can stand in the kitchen, then it's like, okay, then then the language follows. So the most important language was the cuisine, the work, the ethic of why we were all there. And I mean, we had guys in our kitchen from Germany and Austria and one from Switzerland that didn't speak necessarily French as well. So it wasn't just me. But I think that had a big impact on me. And obviously the food speaks for itself. And Pierre's like he's a genius, a true genius. But I think, I guess it was underlined by the fact of the language barrier, a little bit my age of being young, leaving and working in another country for the first time, and all of this made it very impactful and memorable. And obviously going there, you know, London, I'd worked with, the best that there was, Marco Pierre White, all those guys in London, extremely great standards, very, very, very good. But France was another level. There was just this, like, you're really in it now. That sense of like you're in Paris. This truly is like the tier one, at least for me. Not everybody would agree, but for me, that was Robuchon, you have Guy Savoy, you have Pierre Gagnaire, like arpège, like best of the best, and very, very personal in each of those kitchens. So it was a very, personality is so important in food, in all food, but definitely when you're talking gastronomy, to sort of have your own imprint on who you are and what you do was a big factor for me working there, because I really saw it more than anywhere else that I had been. And everywhere I'd been was fantastic. I mean, amazing. But I just felt Pierre's influence spoke more loudly to me, I suppose. So I suppose that's why. Yeah.
Sort of I guess almost a confluence of different things, but also the personal, like you said, his personal approach to food and his ideas.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I stepped into that kitchen. I felt like I, started cooking again for the first time, because they were very, very, like, really interesting techniques. The way of using shellfish, I thought, was very, very smart, really interesting. But yeah, it was just the personality, I think, of how you join the dots to create something. When you take a step back and you look at the whole thing, it's like, wow. It's sort of in the same way as like uh, 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 fashion. When you stitch a suit, a dress, or something like that, you take each individual part in itself, fair enough. But once you put the whole thing together, then you put it on, then you get it. So I think food anyway is very much like that. I mean, Chinese cuisine, not to harp on about it, but definitely, when you go and have dim sum, you don't get blown away by a hagao, right? It's that plus, and it's the multitude of the different layers and leveling of what that style of cuisine is that makes the whole thing memorable. So for me, that was the personality part was really interesting. Yeah, very much so.
So you made a documentary called Man of Taste
Yeah,
long
yeah.
time ago, and I
You know,
didn't get it. Uh-huh.
I didn't make it. I mean, it was I will be a subject matter. My friend, she directed it. Yeah.
Hmm. But now, if everyone has their own documentary, right? The people,
Yeah.
let alone social media, but they have
Yeah.
their own documentary. So,
Everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. Yeah.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
But I felt obviously is that something that's very, very um, sort of cutting edge at the time, obviously. And I feel maybe there's even some sort of similarity or corollary to, especially in the beginning of the documentary, post 9/11 to now we're in post COVID. So obviously times have changed, almost 20 years now, actually. And so how did you feel, your cooking evolved, and also the industry itself, did it change from back then to now?
Oh, of course. I mean, the world has changed, hasn't it? I mean, the documentary. I think. Look, I mean, there's a lot of documentaries about every subject, right? Especially in the world of food. Fair enough. 99.9% of those documentaries focus on the visual aspect. Beautiful, like Instagram, beautiful looking pictures, beautiful looking videography, of dishes, of chefs standing there in their whites. That's all good. The subject of the documentary that I was a part of wasn't really that. It was shot over 10 years. They started filming in late 2001 and finished 2010. So it wasn't so much the fact that, we create a very interesting, thoughtful food. No, it was more the fact that this is a young person and this is what they do, and we're just going to follow them over that amount of time, which still hasn't been done in our world today. I mean, I think we're one of the only ones, if not the only one, within the food world to do that, especially in a major city like in New York, and be honest about it, right? It's not a Netflix edited where it's all beautiful. No, this is just a raw, beautiful, watching someone grow up. That's what made it very, and it's still around now, obviously, makes it very popular. The world has obviously changed dramatically since COVID, 2 years ago. Who would have known, right? I mean, I think food wise, there are other things that are making the food industry have challenges more than COVID, to be honest with you. I think, Ukraine is not a good thing, obviously, at all. It puts, the ripple effect of that when it comes to commerce, etc., has put a huge burden, and and it will continue to on, especially Europe, but across the world. So things like that, yeah, are not so great. Uh, I think, as with everything as well, we released the film. When was it? It was 2011. It came out, and it went on to HBO bought it, BBC bought it, so it went on to like well, not that HBO's mainstream, but it's definitely a very sizable platform to put it on. So that went around the world, and it went on to Netflix and everything, obviously, since then. So I would say probably since the last 10 years, 2012, since had just come out, social media has obviously skyrocketed. Instagram, etc., etc., the streaming platforms. And so mostly everything that comes out is now on a streaming platform, which is a very different way to view things. People's attention spans are not, they don't want to sit there for an hour watching something on Netflix or on Instagram. So you have to condense everything a lot more. So I think that's obviously has a huge impact on our business, how the world sees people that are not in our business, how they see what we do, obviously. Yeah. And that's
That's very
changed.
interesting. Yeah, for sure. And I think to your point,
And
what I find interesting is that, yeah, go on.
that's every business, not just food. I mean, that's all business, but that's had a huge impact, obviously, on the way all of us, we are, in a weird way, we are sort of half cyborg. We all have a phone or this all day. I mean, everywhere you go, everybody has a phone of some description. So everybody communicates in that way. So you know, I think the language of what we do, if that's the way it's communicated, has changed a lot of how we think, how we view, the way we react to these things, rather than, going to a movie theater. I still love that. I think there's something great about switching the lights off, a big screen, but that's obviously changed dramatically. I won't say because of the pandemic. I mean, yes, but more the fact that it's the cultural way that everybody can stream it in their hand anywhere, and that has become the normal way. So definitely, yes, the way people interact, I suppose, with everyone else is different.
And does that impact, maybe like to your point, maybe Instagram or TikTok, stuff like that? Do you feel that impacts or change the way you think about your personal food or the way you approach certain things?
No, no, no. I mean, the food part is obviously is a physical thing. You have to eat the food and join at the restaurant or dinner or whatever we're doing. So it doesn't change necessarily the end product. Um, I suppose you could say it's sort of like opera. 100 years ago, people went to opera and they still go to operas today. But 100 years ago, as a gentleman, you'd wear a top hat, white gloves, tails. Okay. Now, when you go to see an opera, you still want the same thing. Your approach is maybe you're not wearing a top hat or white gloves. So you still want the same end result. You just approach it in a different way. And that's evolution. That's fine. So I think food is the same way. I think people want to drink a beautiful bottle of wine. They want to eat beautiful food, but how they approach it has changed. And that's where the Instagrams and TikToks, etc., come into, how you present yourself to the world, I suppose, and your food.
Mhm. So talking about that, I guess you use a lot of innovative techniques with your dishes and your food. Um, First of all, how would you personally call it? Do you call it, molecular? Do you call it something else?
Oh,
And
no, I've never liked that term
mm,
molecular. I've never, that's a name given to it by people that are not in our industry, right? I mean, I enjoy an open-minded view of cuisine, i.e., I'm classically trained in French, obviously, but I love Chinese food, Japanese food, Thai food. I love cuisine. I don't discriminate. I love food from all over the world because each area of the world has got a lot of magic to whatever it is they're doing. It's not that we can combine everything together, but we can certainly be inspired and take influence from China, from Japan, from Thailand, from you know uh, Scandinavia, from Australia, wherever it is. Ingredient, thought, taste, texture, all the things that build to make a beautiful dish. We can take influence from that. So I would just say more open minded. I suppose you could call the cuisine. Uh, I think the technique wise was always based on foundation of French classical technique, which for Western culture is the building block and mother, obviously, of all cuisine in the West. So I think I look upon development that way as far as food goes, where we create something. But inspiration, definitely, when you travel and what you see and people you meet is definitely a huge part of it. Yeah.
mm. And as far as innovations go, is there a particular reason that draws you particularly into sort of trying to create things? 'Cause some chefs, for example, like to do more traditional stuff. They want to go deeper in the traditions, whereas you seem to be more attracted to new methods or new things. Is there a particular reason why?
Oh, I mean, I personally I like to do a balance of both. I think you know to do the same thing over and over again, it gets boring, right? So it's not that you're going to reinvent the wheel, far from it. No, but definitely you want to have energy and inspiration and um, get people to have an emotion when they eat with the story we tell with the food is a very important thing. Memory, obviously. That's what it obviously creates a memory. So I think to not being creative for the sake of being creative, but being creative for the point of there's the whole world out there with in, ideas and focus that we shouldn't cut ourselves off to, right? I mean, it's not like you come into, and eat our menu and every single time you come in, it's completely different. No, 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 not at all. But there's a nice balance where it's just not a repetitiveness, obviously, which there are plenty of, restaurants around the world, and that's what they do, and they do it really, really well. I'm not particularly one of those people. I'm not built that way. So I like tradition. I like classicism, which is repetition, because you have to do something a lot to become good at it. But you can build on that, and you can have a balance of something that is in between both. So you can have something that you recognize, but also is very thought enlightening, I suppose you could say. And it's the way I enjoy food that way.
Mhm. And so, to your point, when you're talking about creating new dishes, obviously inspiration comes from traveling, people that we talk to, etc. Do you usually start with certain concepts, or do you start with an ingredient, or is there a particular way that you start with?
I would say it depends on the time of year, depends where we are in the world, depends what it's for. Um, if we are doing a restaurant that has 30 seats, our approach is very different to when we do a restaurant which is 150 seats for obvious reasons, right? So it depends. I mean, in everything you mentioned there, yes, there's all factors, absolutely. Um, yeah, it's not one thing. No, definitely not.
Yeah. And then maybe going a little bit more into science and innovation side of things. Uh, are there misconceptions or things that you find perhaps in people thinking about using certain sciences or chemicals or things like that? And people say, "Oh, it's whatever."
Chemicals? What do you mean by chemicals?
As far as like maybe using certain techniques that are not as traditional or more, you use certain, I don't know, for example, like certification, or example. I mean, it's not a new technique per se, but things like that where you're using stuff that's as not just traditional ingredients. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Mm. Well, you're talking about the application of technique, pretty
Mm.
much. So what I will say is, I mean, look, I always come from a place of classical French. That's where which is foundational cooking, methods of cooking. When it comes to techniques of building on top of that, spirification, as you mentioned right there, that all of the techniques, all of them, and El Bouilly with Ferran was one of the pioneers, obviously, of this. All of those techniques all originated in the candy industry. So spirification, using liquid nitrogen, is how you make an ice lolly or an ice cream where you freeze a shell, or all of these techniques are used and taken from things that are more common to an everyday person for generations all over the world than are to go eat at El Bouilly or myself, where we're doing a technique. There's nothing, I'm not going to say there's nothing new, but it's not that new. It's not being created from scratch. It's all taking an idea that a company like Mars or Nestle used to create popular candy or a popular ice cream. And then you can adapt that technique and use it for normally a savory application, for a restaurant setting. But, those techniques have been around since, the 50s and the 40s. And, that's nothing. And I mean, obviously most people don't know that, but that's the case in point. And it's the same with, fermentation, which is, the sort of byword that everybody's jumping up and down about now. But, we've had that for, let me see, since human beings existed, you know, cheese, beer, it's all fermentation, everything. Nothing new about that. It's just our industry always needs to have something that is new and cool. And it's not really that new, I'll be honest. But it becomes popular to obviously, uh, so I think the way to do the technique thing, like, I mean, we use a lot of ingenuity with techniques and what have you, but it's not to play off the technique. It's to allow the food first and foremost, the ingredients to do what they do, and we can help craft a little bit with some of the techniques that we do. It's not the other way around. So it's not about showing off, from my point of view, the way we cook, about showing off a technique. It's never really been that way. We're very, very subtle with how we do it. Um, but honestly, like the older I get, more and more I sort of now almost are coming full circle back to, again, that foundational cooking of ingredient French and the classical way of doing, which I mean, I started there, and I mean, we've never stopped doing that, but I find it's actually more difficult to cook that way because you have to really have a lot of practice to do it. So I think for the younger generation now, it's very important that they learn that to be good at their craft, to learn the craft. So yeah, we're sort of uh, doing that, I suppose, more than we have done maybe 10 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what's interesting. Obviously, I didn't even know about a lot of the fact that a lot of
Yeah,
the techniques are from the candy industry. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, because those were inventions, obviously, for mass production. So you know, take like an ice cream or a sorbet where you would have, like a strawberry one, and then you've got a vanilla, and then you've got like a raspberry, and they're all sort of, and you bite into it, and you've got all the different layers of ice cream. I mean, that's a technique that was used, way back when, to make ice cream so that it wouldn't melt. So you would make a small one, then you would freeze it in on a stick in liquid nitrogen, and then you would dip it into a vat of like vanilla ice cream that would freeze around it, and then you would freeze that again, and then you would, so you can layer. I mean, we use that technique for obviously many different applications in the kitchen, but that's something that goes back, 80 years easily. I mean, people don't really want to know about that, but it's an interesting to know that, that's people that were much smarter than all of us put together they invented that, which was genius, really, so that you could make a lot of them, obviously, because that was, for mass market kind of idea. So yeah, it's what Ferran did with the siphon, the espuma canister, right, which was for cream. It was built so you didn't have to like whip up cream with your hand. And he said, well, why can't we just put something flavored into it and make the same, which is genius. But the idea of that canister's been around for a number of years before that. And then, every restaurant on earth has got a siphon canister doing something with it. And it's a great idea because it really works. And it's great application. But yeah, it's just, I guess, I guess it's just, again, same, playing on the work and the genius of other people and putting your little twist on it. To what Ferran and a lot of the other amazing people in our business have done.
Sure. I mean, I haven't had the chance to go to Abu Dhabi, obviously when I started going to restaurant, I think they already closed or close to it. But
Yeah, they closed in 2011, so a while ago. But I mean, I had the honor to go there a few times, um, and cook with him and what have you. And you talk about identity and about like thought, like that's like that was at the high end of really being very very special, very very special. Like that's generational, like one in a generation of the thought process for the whole way to work and the way to develop what you do. Genius, truly. Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's just so influential that basically, like you said, I would say even nowadays, a lot of the Spanish chefs are still, either work with him or be just so heavily influenced by him that it's pretty impressive what he has been
Absolutely.
able to do. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, every generation has got that one chef that, oh, like changed the game, I guess you could say. Like they reinvented what the previous generation, I suppose, before Ferran. I mean, Ferran, before him, I said it was probably Paul Bocuse in France, who took sort of from at the end of World War II, the idea of French grand cuisine and modernized it for the restaurant setting. And before him, Escoffier, who took the idea of um, dining in a very different direction than it had been prior to him. So, if we want to go back and back, I mean, you have like Antoine Carême, who took the idea of as a chef, you used to work for a wealthy family. That was what chefs were before, right? And restaurants weren't really restaurants. Restaurants were like a tavern. You go, you would have, for people that were traveling. So he took the idea of taking the chef out of the private rooms of an estate and making it available to people, like in the form of restaurant as we know it. So definitely every generation has got definitely one person that sort of moves it forward. And I mean, for our generation, I think Ferran was the one that made being creative accessible, I suppose, in a way. Very, very, very smart. Really kind of amazing.
Yeah, it'd be great to have the chance to go there. I don't think that's gonna happen, but it's fun to even chat or have a conversation that way. And it's funny actually too when you're talking about the change in terms of how restaurants came about historically. I saw a movie, not a historical document or anything, but just a fictional movie called Delicious. It's a French movie about exactly what you're saying. So it's a chef or someone that worked at a kitchen of a nobility, and then basically he got kicked out, and then he started his own tavern
Yeah.
slash restaurant.
Yeah.
It was very interesting.
When you look at, it comes like with everything in life, it always came down to economics. It's expensive to have a private chef. So only the wealthy families or like a royal court could afford them to have that and have the massive brigade of people that you need to do that. So to take that and make it available to normal people was a huge step forward. I mean, it's the same with everything, I suppose, right? The computer, the cell phone, like technology, all of it. And 20 years ago, not everybody had a phone. Well, they might have had a phone, but not like today, right? So that's just the way the world works. So definitely food wise. And that's, I suppose, touching on your question before about, the TikTok and the Netflix and the Instagrams of the world, it makes the higher end of food more accessible in a weird way to more people, which is a good thing. It makes it adds a level of like legitimacy, I suppose you could say, to what we do, where it would be normally, 20 years ago, if you can afford to go eat at a good restaurant, okay, you went, but you weren't going on a date night. You were going because it was a special occasion only. Now it's a little different. There are more good restaurants than ever before around the world. And more people want to go out and eat in that way than before. So I think that's a positive thing, obviously.
If the times that's changed with the technology.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So, talking about people that are influential, obviously, one of the interviews that you mentioned, you admire people that see things others don't, and people would maybe put you in that category. What do you see coming up, either chef-wise or food-wise, coming up in the future, or even now?
Uh, I think things are going to get a little tougher, to be honest with you. I don't think the globalization of food around the world, I think it's going to slow down a little bit. I think people are going to focus more on where they are, than where they want to be. Um, I, I definitely think that, I get asked this question a lot, and it's a hard one. It's like, what's the new thing? I mean, nobody knows what the new thing is going to be, obviously. I think the narrative of dining out is more important than ever before. It's not to just go out and have a great meal. There has to be something more to it than that. I think the expectation of what people want out of a meal, I'm not talking the food or the wine or anything like that, just the expectation there's more from a customer than there was before. it's a kind of a hard one to explain, but I just think people's expectations are higher than they were 10 years ago. So yeah, I think that's definitely not going to stop. It's going to get more because everybody, when they go out, they'll take a picture on TikTok or Instagram, and the whole world sees it, and it's that all the time. So your expectation is you want to one up that. So it can be good. It can also be unrealistic from people that come in. You're like, what are we going to do that's gonna? But I think that's a case in point. Definitely, you can't, I suppose, like rest on your laurels. I suppose is the way of thinking about it. More, especially after the pandemic, where there's a voracious, literal appetite to go out, obviously, and dine. So I think definitely that's something that, yeah, is not good. But I think it'll be more localized, I guess you could say, right? Than maybe 5 years ago. Yeah, that would be sort of at least the feeling that I get. But I mean, I could be wrong, but that's the feeling I get. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, the experience thing as far as what people's expectations of restaurants are.
Mm.
There are restaurants like Alchemist, obviously, in Denmark, and where they, or Ultraviolet in
That
Shanghai, it's all, the whole thing.
those are definitely the 0.1%, but 20 years ago, you're not going to do a restaurant like that. So, but the expectation of people going to Alchemist is obviously they want to have their minds blown away. So that I'm not saying that for restaurants in general, but definitely that, yeah, that sort of is people want something a lot more than just sort of sitting there and eating. Yeah.
Mhm. Almost back to the old medieval times where you literally have people jousting in front of you and, you're eating as at the same time, kind of, almost.
Well, times, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the last couple questions. Thanks again, Chef Liebrandt, for being with us. What's your personal favorite dish in a restaurant or in general, and why?
In general, that's a hard question. And I don't have one in particular. I mean, I love Japanese cuisine. So I love the approach and the palette of that. I love, I mean, there wouldn't be one. I'll be honest with you. I mean, it, if the end of the world was tomorrow, maybe pad thai.
Oh,
There
wow.
you go. Something like pad thai, like a really good pad thai. It's got every flavor. It's got sweet, sour, salty, like everything, all at the same time. Texture's great, and if that's it, then that's it. But that would be one that definitely I could eat and be very happy with.
Right.
A good pad thai. There's
Okay.
a lot of bad pad thais. Yeah,
What about your own restaurant, let's say?
I don't have a favorite dish.
No?
No. Yeah, the dishes would get jealous. I don't have.
But
Yeah, I would
you pick
say,
me, right?
definitely I like working with seafood and vegetables a lot more than meat. Um, so yeah, that's not dish, but definitely more that direction. Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question, any particular exciting things coming up, plans coming up in the future?
Yes, many things.
Anything you
Uh,
can share with us?
I can't put out. We're not ready to announce anything yet, but we have projects that we're working on right now for next year. Yeah, that
Mhm. Is it more like in what form? Let's put it that way.
restaurants.
Ah, okay. Okay. So something cooking in the restaurant space itself.
Yeah,
Right on.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Cool. That's excellent. So thanks again for a great chat. A lot of history, a lot of technology, a lot of cultural things as well. So it's great speaking with you, Chef
yeah.
Liebrandt.
I thank you very much for the questions. You probably tell I'm a bit more philosophical, I suppose, when I talk about food. It's just the way I am. I like to think of food and the nature of what we do in that way rather than a sort of day-to-day nuts and bolts, cook this, yes, we do that, but I definitely am a bit more philosophical, I suppose, about the nature of why we do what we do, which I find very interesting, and why people want to have what we do.
I think that's actually quite, I don't know about the word helpful, but it's more indicative of how things are important to you, right? Like in terms of things that really interest you, that you really go deep into certain topics where you don't just, to your point, you don't just execute, but also really think about the reasons why you're doing certain things or what
Yeah.
makes it work.
I mean, what we do every day is we tell a story. We tell a story. A customer comes to the restaurant, they have a dream. I know this sounds a bit whatever, but they have sort of an idea and a dream of what their expectations are going to be. It's our job to deliver on that dream. So for me, it's important to understand the reasoning why. Like, how do we do that? Like that. Yeah, I mean, that's more the sort of psychological aspect, but it does tie into a lot of human nature that hasn't changed. Like, I mean, all of us have a favorite movie, right? Or a favorite song or a favorite color. Why? These are just things. And so food is obviously a huge part of that. All of us have to eat every day. So if you choose to eat a certain way, why is that? So I think that's to tap into that way and it's to create a pleasurable memory so that you can just have that in your mind of like, you know, uh, I had a meal when I was 10 years old and it stuck with me. And that's generally, I think, a really great way to approach, I mean, anything in life, but definitely food, definitely food to bring that level of like, to reach inside and like be able to give someone something they weren't expecting. So they take it with them. Um, that's what Elbowy did very well. I mean, Elbowy was phenomenal at doing things that would really, you could talk about now as if it were yesterday, but it was like, how did they do that? So yeah, I like that idea. That grand sort of philosophical way of thinking about it, and the execution. Obviously, I mean the technical part is great to make beautiful food that you could eat and just go, absolutely, sure, that's great. Yeah, but sort of marrying the two together.
Yeah, giving you that experience, but also the execution. Obviously, if the food
Uh,
is not good, then we're not talking about anything else, right?
yeah, I mean right now, in summertime in New York City here, we're very blessed to be able to go to at the Union Square Green Market and have the plethora, honestly, of fruit, vegetable, herb that all the farmers, obviously, that are in this region bring to the market. Which like a lot of other places you go, you don't have that luxury, obviously, of being able to tap into that. So to go there and to see everything that is as natural as it gets, but and think and have the thought of what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? What story are we going to tell? Like this time of year, who's coming? All of it. That's really the story, I suppose, of kind of the idea of what we're talking about. No, it's to me, that's the way I approach it rather than take this, cook that, because that's the recipe, execute, done. Yes, you do that, but I think there has to be a narrative behind that a little bit. That's
Yeah, to use the ingredient the best way, and to your point, tell the story that you want to tell.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
Awesome, great. Thanks again, chefs, for being with us, and hope one day. Actually, well, I'm not that far from you guys, so maybe sometime soon I'll come down and visit you guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.